computer. Okay. Everybody can see my screen?
I can, thank you. All right, meeting is called to order. I need a motion to approve August and September minutes. Or if folks have had a chance to look at them or have corrections, this will be the time.
I read through them. I moved to approve them. Or motion.
I second.
Great. Thank you. And who seconded?
Katie.
Thank you. Only because Joseph's he's on the phone and he's gonna be looking at the recording so that he can do the notes for this month. Thank you. All right. Yeah, I looked at them too. I think they look great. Thank you very much. I actually got a comment from Katie that our minutes look great, August and September both. So thank you guys for that. As far as the agenda, obviously there's going to be a change because DNO is out because she just texted me last minute, maybe about an hour ago, to say she's not feeling well. So we're going to push this off till next month. I filled out the form she asked for. So next month we should actually have some quotes as well as a bit of an overview. Today she was not going to have quotes, but she was going to have an opportunity to talk about it, an opportunity for folks to ask questions about it. All of that is going to get tabled till next month. I don't see anybody else from the community on here. If somebody does jump on, we can move that around. Any issues, anything else on for the agenda before we approve it and move forward? All right. We're gonna make this a little light and not, worry about motions and seconds, as long as you guys are okay with, things like this, approving the agenda. All right, so the first thing that we have on here is the marketing audit. And Erin, you should be able to share your screen and walk us through this. I read it just about, half an hour ago. It was wonderful. I really am looking forward to doing some of the things that you identified in there. Thank you, sir. Floor is yours.
Cool. Yeah. So I wrote out the audit. It's very extensive so that anyone would have the opportunity to read through it and hopefully get something out of it without me having to explain it. I am going to go through it pretty quickly. And if you have any questions, just jot them down and I'll, address them at the end of this. Or if we run out of time, you can email me or set up a separate chat.
We actually have time, especially with Patty pulling
Okay.
out, and really we have like 10-15 minutes for community and nobody else is on here, so we have time to kind of go through this. And so it's up to you in terms of when you want to talk about questions, whether throughout, or at the end. That's fine, but we have time.
Let me see, put it on presentation mode. All right, can you see that without the Zoom stuff?
I can see it.
Sweet. Alrighty. So the problem we all know is brand awareness. It's just people don't really know about SUNI or what it is or why they would want to know what it is. And then some systems and processes, just some organization to get things moving more smoothly and easier with less time needed. So saying that it's an official registered neighborhood organization is a little confusing because that doesn't really communicate exactly what the benefit is to somebody who is going to be involved with SUNI. So that's what I'm going to be talking about over the next few pages.
And afterwards, let us know what you need us, or I think part of this is, and maybe everybody else isn't aware either, and Erin, you're not, but we're registered with the city and county of Denver, and our existence is codified in the municipal code. And if you think those are kind of like those pieces that are missing in that awareness piece, so just let us know like how what we
Yeah.
should do to make
I'm
sure
gonna
that
get,
that
yeah,
change-
I'm gonna get into the details of that.
Okay.
Because that still doesn't communicate really to like the normal person what that means, like what the benefit is. So it's a pretty interesting problem to solve. So what is brand awareness? It represents how familiar the target audience, which is all the residents in Sunnyside and businesses, is with the brand and how well they recognize it. Builds trust, creates association, it builds brand equity, and that's the value or the perceived value of the brand in the market. And building brand awareness is going to help SUNY achieve its mission of uniting, planning, and informing. So here's an overview of how to do it. Be a person, not a company. Socialize, tell a narrative, and make sharing easy. So we want to define a personality and a voice for SUNY. Continue hosting events, share more content online, valuable content, not just anything. Tell a narrative, the story of Sunnyside, its residents and businesses, its community gatherings and events. There's a huge opportunity here. The history of Sunnyside is pretty interesting. All the people and businesses that are there are interesting. And then we have these events that aren't really being documented. So there's a bunch of content that's already there. It just needs to be captured and then shared. And then we're going to make that easy by creating some impactful graphic stories, kind of making a template for how to do this in a process. Brand equity goals, create and promote a positive image of the neighborhood, develop a strong sense of community within the neighborhood, take pride in and responsibility for our neighborhood, work harmoniously and cooperatively with adjacent neighborhood associations for mutual improvement of all Northwest Denver and the city of Denver as a whole, and then encourage involvement and participation by as many residents as possible. And I grabbed a lot of this from the various sources that I had, like the website and some of the Word docs that were on the Google Drive.
So, I want to say something about that work harmoniously cooperative with adjacent neighborhoods association. So I think this gets back to we're doing this, it's just not visible, right? For instance, we put on co-branded events with our other neighborhoods. We are working with Regis to do an election forum. But I think, to your point, if you don't share it, it doesn't exist. People don't know about it. So I think it's actually happening. And it was something that wasn't before, and there was a concerted effort, at least on my part, about doing exactly that, because these were missing pieces before. But if it's not visible to you and you've been looking, right, then we're not doing a good job.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a lot. It's really interesting because this neighborhood association, you guys do a lot more than a lot of the other ones, and it's just not visible to people. So that's the main issue. Yeah, so that's where the next slide. Most residents are unaware or they're confused to its purpose and benefits. The most prominent lacking piece of info is the connection that SUNY fosters between local residents and businesses and with the city of Denver. The government piece is totally missing from the verbiage, like how important that is and why people would want to be involved. And I talked to a lot of people in Sunnyside that have lived there for 20, 25 years, and they've never even heard of SUNY. But we're interested. We're really interested. So this is what the vision statement currently is. And I wrote this down. I think I edited a little bit from the pitch. Our intent is for a group of people of diverse cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds to join together in harmony, mutual respect, and peace with the purpose of planning and building for the future, improving the present, and preserving and restoring the past of the Sunnyside neighborhood. And this isn't like an internal document, so it doesn't have to be as punchy as like the external pitch needs to be.
But I think it's important to actually talk about the mission a little bit, because if we're not doing things that align with those things, then
Yeah.
we're not focusing on what we want, or our mission is wrong.
And this is there's a difference between a vision and a mission. So the mission is going to be the more external statement, and the vision is like where it's going in the future.
Yeah, and I think what I want to bring up on that one, if you can go back to that, is actually that restoring the past, right? I mean, restoring the past may or may not actually be what people want to do, in a sense, because can you really restore the past? And I'm just talking broadly because we have a new board here, right? So some of these conversations, like completely make sense to me because I've been playing in this space for a bit. But when we think about restoring the past, are we doing anything to restore the past? Do we want to restore the past? I'm not even sure, but it's an interesting thing, about this. And as an organization, we should be either sticking to some of this or thinking about how we change this or modify this to what actually makes sense today, right? This is stuff that was created at least 7 years ago. That's actually not that long ago, at least for an organization or a neighborhood. But, I just want folks to be thinking about this when we come back to the questions and things. Let's talk about whether this makes sense and if it's still relevant. And everything can evolve, right? Like this isn't set in stone. This is what we have today.
Yeah, so the current mission statement is this: SUNY is the official registered neighborhood organization for the Sunnyside neighborhood. We represent Sunnyside on our important city committees, bring the community together through events, and support our local nonprofits and students through our fundraisers and scholarship fund. It's missing a key phrase to indicate the connection between residents, neighborhood issues, and government. Just saying that it's an official registered neighborhood organization or that it represents Sunnyside on important committees doesn't really communicate exactly the magnitude of what it actually does. So that's an area for improvement too. It's a good start though. All right, and then, defining some values to go by would be a pretty good idea. I picked this from the site, and here's that piece again about preserving important history. I don't even know what that means to you guys. Like you said, it sounds to me like if you want to restore history, you're talking about like not really moving forward, but preserving would be more like telling stories.
I think there's, there's larger conversations that are happening, obviously, on the neighborhood planning initiative, but they happen all the time, whether it's through like Historic Denver or many different organizations that are working to capture culturally relevant history, right? So when we talk about this preserving important history, I think it's the stuff like La Raza Park, right? And why that's significant and what's the story behind that, or other pieces. But again, I think, what are we doing about it? That's something for us to grapple with. And is that the right statement?
Yeah.
But I do think that whether it's preserving important history or preserving relevant cultural, history, I think that is on a larger scale. The neighborhood planning initiative is talking about that, and that comes in many forms. And folks, I know a lot of you guys don't connect with the land use committee, and not enough people do, but I'll tell you the kinds of stuff that they work on. They look at properties that are relevant. And as an organization and as a city and as a neighborhood, they could say things like, we don't want to lose that. that's been around for 60 years and it is very specific. I mean, it could be like Pochitos, right? Tortilla factory in our neighborhood. It is, there's a nightclub, it is like Mile High Comics. It is like, so this, but again, preserving important history, if that says it wrong, right? We should think about that. But there are conversations at the city level that when we think about our future 20, 30 years from now, we're actually talking about making sure that certain businesses and things actually don't get displaced. People don't get displaced and businesses don't get displaced. So, and they'll try to help them with, tax incentives, stuff like that. So think about that one, like 3 words, one comment. Is it capturing it properly? I don't know, but it is actually super relevant, and the city and people who show up at these meetings about, neighborhood planning initiative are talking about keeping cultural relevance. And La Raza is just the easy example of what that means. So I want people to think about that, but that's not the only example in our neighborhood of that important history part.
Yeah, and the values are really important. I like it because it even takes the mission and the vision and everything to a much simpler form where you can just have, 3 or 4 words in your head, and every action that's made or forward movement that's made, you just think, well, does this have anything to do with the values? Does it promote community connection? Is it informative? Is it for the future? Is it for the history? And if it isn't, then it gets moved down on the priority, or maybe it doesn't get done at all. So like the values are good for that. And then another key piece that helps guide action is going to be the customer journey. So we're coming up to that in a little while. Yeah, so the value proposition, why is it, value? And this is this totally needs to be reworked.
Yes,
This
I
is
agree.
taken from the site. And I just think there's a lot more value than what it says here. I mean, individual household and business benefits and everything. We can look at this later. That's like another.
No, I completely
Another
agree.
meeting.
The value proposition is a meeting and a discussion all by
Yeah.
itself. And
Yeah.
it is something that we've struggled with. And this gets back to, how do we sell a membership without a value proposition, to either residents or to businesses? And we need to tie those things, together
Yeah.
back to the
So
organization.
creating, going back to the beginning and creating the brand awareness, and then building up the equity, and then showing the residents how cool SUNY is, that in itself is going to create value and make them want to join. That's one of the first steps. But actually listing this out is going to be a chore.
It's its own project. It's its own project, and actually ties back to our financials, because selling membership and, business and otherwise is how we can operate. If we were not to fundraise and we were simply relying on selling membership, then we have to show and demonstrate value to the people who support us. And we haven't taken that on as a project to really vet it through, but we're kind of working on it, and more to come on that. But thank you.
So the unique selling proposition, this is what makes SUNY stand out from anybody else that's trying to associate themselves with the neighborhood or stand for the neighborhood. And it is the fact that it's the official registered neighborhood organization, but here it's written out a little clearer and more detail. It receives notification of proposed zoning amendments, landmark designation applications, planning board, and blah, blah, blah. All this stuff, it's kind of boring to read and listen to. So it would be great if we could find some way to say this in simpler
Layman's
terms.
term, yeah. I was
Like
gonna say that
layman's
other
terms.
page that we had, we should have a whole list on for individuals and households and a whole page on businesses, because we do a lot more. We're partnering with areas around us to, great, we get a monthly community event, and I mean, I'm not downplaying that because that's the fun stuff. But land use and improving the parks and supporting the schools and all of that. So there's a lot of opportunity for
And
us right
part
here.
of this gets back to the need to improve our website, because that's what's actually been missing. So that's a big part of the messaging and communication has just been stalled because the website is a way to do it and because we hadn't been working on it. But I think that that's an opportunity and also a solution over the next 6 months, 8 months. So for instance, when we talk about something like land use and businesses and such, right? So for businesses, we would have business pages that are relevant to businesses. That means people can find them, but it also to make sure it serves the businesses. When it comes to land use, we'd make sure that all properties that are currently under redevelopment or rezoning or discussion, those are also captured on that page. So I think, kind of blowing each of the things out and showing and demonstrating is what's missing. And I think the website piece was a part of it. So I think we're on our way and some of these things will get solved, but you're right, today they're missing.
Yeah, and then also remember, you got to get people to the website. So it's going to have to be in the messaging that's in social media. It's going to have to be
Yep.
in the messaging just when talking to people, and in the email newsletter.
Yep.
But coming up with a concise slogan, our elevator pitch is going to be key. And so this is the current slogan. The challenge here is to rewrite it that communicates the unique selling point, in 5 seconds or less, and easy to understand language. We want anybody to be able to understand this. What does landmark designation application even mean to somebody, So that's something to think about. The logo.
Honestly,
All right.
sticking that in there as a very specific thing is probably unnecessary, because it's so specific and they're so far and few, in between. It's not something that comes up often, right? So it's back to, we should take it back and say, in terms of land use, what are the things happening in Sunnyside, and put those in there with the resources and links and the meetings where those are discussed, right? So back to website stuff, but we definitely agree. There's so much of the rewording. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your outside view on this.
And it could be that we look closer at it and find that, there actually is no way to really simplify this. And so it stays, the wording stays as, like, let's just say proposed zoning amendments. But then on social media, for example, or in a printed flyer, there could be something that says, hey, do you want to say, and whether this building is a 8-story condo or this, then join SUNI. And that's
this is happening right now, just so you know. Hey, if anybody doesn't know we're doing this, please show up at our meetings. This is actually true. This is actually happening. And it is the message that we can't get out fast enough.
Yeah.
It's sexy and exciting. That's the other part. Even if we can get the message out, it is dry and boring sometimes. So how to make a dry and boring topic sexy and exciting, that's another layer of, if we get to past having the message out and then making it relevant, I think we're going to be in that zone really quickly.
Yeah, it's personal. It's about connecting with people and their relationship with the neighborhood. Do they care about where they live? Do they have pride in it? And if they do, they're going to want to be involved. So it's about forming the message in a way that catches their attention.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Because I think most people do care, but we haven't found the right hook, right? To say,
Yeah.
this is it. This is now. It's happening. And then there are people who don't care and we'll never get to them, but we haven't even tried to get to better, approach and outreach to the people who actually do care. So we got work to do.
So now we're on to brand assets. We talked about the slogan, and this is taking, the awareness and the equity and putting into more of a visual asset here. So we got the logo. There was one person said it needed to change. I think it doesn't have to completely be redone. It's just not a high priority. What's a bigger priority right now is getting the messaging
Yep.
down in some of the systems and processes, but analyzing the logo, looking at what works. The sun and the sunflower shape makes sense because
We should
it's
keep it.
Sunnyside, and then
Yeah.
Sunnyside was historically farmland and orchard. So like having the sunflower here makes sense to me. It's also pretty memorable. You don't see it in any other neighborhood organization in Denver. And I always like to think of Rhino as kind of being the ultimate like branded neighborhood organization. I mean, they get the Rhino everywhere. They just look cool. And then they have a lot of cool material to work with because of all the murals and the art that's going on down there. And you think about a logo being memorable like the Rhino, well, the sunflower works.
Yeah, I like the sunflower. I like what you wrote there about like, are the buildings, necessary? So apparently my understanding when they designed this logo, which is probably about 6-7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Was that this is the view of somewhat of a view from here to downtown. I don't think it translates well, to be honest. If it does, nobody really recognizes it. And I like your idea of whether, Sunnyside or Sunny can go inside that logo or something, but I do agree that we should keep the sun and that sunflower aspect of this logo.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the buildings are confusing to me, but
Fair.
that's interesting about the view.
Yeah, and I mean, I have not
Huh.
actually validate that to be like, I'm standing
yeah.
from here and the skyline looks like that. That's what I've been told by past leadership, that when they came up with it, it had to do with kind of creating a skyline. But the skyline's ever changing. So like whatever that is, it's going to be gone anyway. So maybe that's not the most important, thing, because it won't stay constant anyway. But I agree with you that the sun should stay. I think that is the part. Like, have you seen the honey stuff, right? So honey is honey and it's got a bee. And I don't know if you saw this, but at the pig roast, they were giving out little jars of honey. Okay, tiny little jars of honey with a little, tag on it that had their information. So they had like, they tied in their name to a thing, and then they were able to like market it. So like we should be thinking along lines of that kind of branding.
Yeah, if we took the buildings out of here, then it would be more about the sun, sunflower, and then maybe people like me would start calling it Sunny instead of SUNY.
Sunny.
Remember. Yeah, it's just too busy with the buildings too. But it's not that high of priority. It might be more fun to work on this, but
you're right. I mean, if we just keep the sun, even some of the we got some swag, right? And the swag has the current logo. It's probably still okay because that current logo, if we don't change it too much, the swag is still relevant enough. But I mean, that's the only thing I think about.
People are going to remember the sunflower shape. They're not going to remember these dumb buildings inside of the sunflower.
I agree.
Free,
you can have free reign on, after you get a better sense of the organization, right? Like, through some of this stuff, you're going to be like, oh, I get a better idea of what you do. It's demonstrated in what you're sharing. Then where that logo kind of actually fits, I think that is like, if we're thinking about the most important and relevant things, it's probably number 3. We got to get the website, the communication, the branding, and then the logo. And I think the logo may be the natural step of the culmination of those other things. If we
Yeah,
get those things, then the logo could make sense. And
yeah.
I think it'd be great if you focus on that kind of at that level.
So the color scheme is already kind of put together. I know Danny had done some work on the branding guideline and took colors from the logo and some of the previous stuff. And
What do you
we
think
just
about it? I mean, do you think
edited them a
that's
little
good?
bit. We did change the colors slightly, just to improve them a little bit. I like it. I mean, the black and white and yellow is very striking.
I actually
Memorable.
like the blue too. And some of the stuff that you've been doing where you've been bringing in the blue and the black. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but she's been doing some of the marketing for our Halloween and our event covers and social media. And it kind of ties into kind of having this consistent brand. And that's what we want. And blue is being brought in. I like the blue in there too.
Yeah.
But
I
again,
mean,
I look to your eye. My eyes, are okay.
these are great colors. I mean, they're
Okay, cool.
happy. They're sophisticated, timeless. Yeah, very balanced.
I like that. Thank
So we've been working on the fonts too.
you. Mhm.
This kind of friendly serif here, I can't stand the name of it because
I was gonna say, can you pronounce that?
Yeah, I
Custard?
don't know. But we looked at others and this was the favorite among the group that was looking at it.
I like it.
It's like friendly authority, and not authority in a bad way, but like knowledgeable.
It's also a little playful. It's
Yeah.
more playful than those other, very like, no curves going on, right? And not as crazy as the one over there that is so informal. So
Yeah.
I think I like that. But again, I think everybody probably should weigh in on that. But I like the in between there, between that formality and, and goofiness.
So we've been using it in the social media graphics. So if you want to look at the Instagram page, you can get a good idea for what it looks like in the real world, instead of just laid out here on the audit. Same for this body font, Source Sans Pro. Sans Serif is a font I like to use when there's large bodies of text that are going to be on the web because it's just easier to read. And then this one in particular is one of the friendlier ones. Just by the way some of the letters are designed. And then
Can I ask you a question? Up at the
Yeah.
top of your presentation, right there where it says brand assets and fonts, that is the Custard?
yes,
Okay.
Custard.
Custard.
I swear, I wish we could rename it.
And are you suggesting that we have something like the Custard and also something like the Sans Pro as being the couple that we use?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so this Custard would be used just for titles and headings. So the bigger font, smaller length of sentences. So not even a sentence, like a phrase, like I did here, brand assets font.
Right.
And then if something's going to be a sentence or written longer, it'd be Source Sans Pro, which is what you're seeing on this page here. And then on this
I like
page,
it.
all these pages.
No, I think I like it. I mean, I would love to hear from other people. So far, what you're seeing and hearing, obviously, we've never addressed branding as an organization. I mean, in the 5-6 years that I've been here, we have never addressed this as a thing. So, I'd love to hear from other people whether you think we're going in the right direction with thinking about these things. Yeah, please. Anyone
Definitely.
else?
Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, I'm just used to working for large organizations where that's part of what we do, you know, so we always had a style font guide, you know, and things like a style guide and all that. So I think it's important to, because people then start to recognize it. And then if we can find some, like I said, maybe for special occasions to put in a little flair to it, but like that one that's down, the third one on the page, to me, I'm like, that hurts my eyes because I can't quite read it. So I think it's finding that right mix of font that's professional but friendly and warm and easy to read, all of that.
The other thing that I took into consideration was availability. Who's going to have access to these fonts when they're creating things? Anybody. It's in Canva for free, and you can get them from Google Fonts. So there's no barrier to use them either. All right, let's see. So we were talking about brand voice earlier. You know, conversational, friendly, fun is something I think that should be considered so that it connects more with people in the community. Like, hey, we're all friends and neighbors, and have it not be so cold, like land, or whatever the mission statement was. So, okay, this part's really interesting. Our target audience is the neighbors, businesses, property owners. The 2021 census data hasn't been broken down to neighborhood yet. So we're going off of 2017. So take this with a grain of salt, because I have a feeling it's changed a lot. But the population, 10,000, and then there's a little over 4,000 households. Here we've got 50-50 male, female, and then it's like 40% white, 40% Latino. And I'm really curious to get the 2021 data for Latino, because I know there's been a lot of changes with real estate in the past few years. But in 2017, 25% speak a language other than English at home in Sunnyside. I think most of that is Spanish here, 23%. So that's pretty interesting. We have, yeah, look at the median rent is $834 in 2017. I think it's probably like $1,500 now. We've got across the board kind of equal education. Median age is 34. In 2017, it was 50-50 homeowner renter. And so like these are who's in the neighborhood, you know, of course, is important to keep in mind when you're formulating your messaging. Who are we talking to? And so now we've got the customer journey. This is really interesting and fun for me to think about, and especially as it applies to SUNY, because you think a lot of times like you can put out one post or one email about an event and that somebody's gonna mark it or remember it, and that's just not true. You got to consistently present the message over and over again, even to people who have decided that they want to be a part of SUNY, because they might miss that message, or that might need to read it in a different format in order for it to connect and absorb. So first we've got the awareness stage, and then this is when a member or someone in the neighborhood is searching for their pain points. They might not even know exactly what they are, but like, let's just say, for example, they want to know more about what's happening on the corner of 44th and Tejon, and not have any clue where to go to get that information. And maybe this is just a thought in their head. So this is an opportunity to connect with this person and to show the value. And then they're going to consider SUNY. They're discovering local news, activities, organizations, influencers. Maybe they saw us tagged in a post or they saw a booth at like the music festival. So they're considering SUNY. Does it bring value to them? And then this little scale right here is like the mood. So at the beginning, they're frustrated, like what's going on? They just tore that building down. Now what's going to happen? And then they discover SUNY and are kind of like, well, maybe I can get information from SUNY. And then in the third stage of decision, they've signed up for the newsletter. They're following us on social. Maybe they've joined, maybe they've paid dues. They want to become an advocate. They want to volunteer. They're pretty excited because SUNY answered the pain points. They showed them what's happening with that building and showed them the value that they bring. That dies off. You know, you got to keep that alive for these people. So it just means listening to the current members, listening to what they want or what they need, what's lacking, and then adjusting and moving forward to meet those needs. And I'm not saying changing SUNY's mission statement or anything like that, but maybe somebody's not getting the emails. Well, how do they get information? Do they get it printed? Do they read their printed mail? Do they need a flyer? Do they read a flyer on a business door? So this whole customer journey is something that's really cool and interesting to keep in mind as progress is being made, and not just stopping at one of these stages thinking like, oh, if somebody becomes aware of us, of course they're going to want to join. And then that's the end of it. It's just it's a cycle, you know. You got to keep nurturing the neighbors.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
It does.
Sorry, guys. It's going to be like this until I get my computer back.
All right. So we're moving out of the whole branding talk, and now we're going to move into systems and processes. And the impression I got is it's not really organized at all. But it's a work in progress, and it's on everyone's mind to get it organized better. There's already been some efforts to do that. And that this organization is miles ahead of many others. So it's pretty exciting.
Erin, I want to say one thing, and I think this is one that we have to prep for, which is that it's a constant change of people, right? So
Yeah.
there's this constant change. Like I can be like, oh no, I know we're miles ahead, and I know we're kind of organized, but it's only me or only a few people. So we're constantly in this, where it seems and appears, because people come and go, that it would be. And I'd like to make sure that as we're thinking about how to plan, for all of this, that we incorporate the fact that we have a never ending, group of people that'll come and go. So whatever we do, we got to be cognizant of it's a constant new group of people learning something, and they're not starting from scratch, but if they didn't know any better, they would feel like they are, right? So so just kind of as we think about moving forward, how do we make sure that newer folks are, have that information?
When I document and write out workflows and processes, I like to think about like, well, if, all these people died or, disappeared, can somebody else pick it up and carry it on from there? And like, that's the goal.
Well, that's a succession planning issue for the board too. We have a documentation issue, and then we have a succession planning issue. Two different things, but they're related from the standpoint of, we need to make sure that new board members come on and they're not like, we're starting from scratch again, because that's actually not true, but if you didn't know any better, or if somebody wasn't there to either share it with you, or there wasn't documentation, you
Yeah.
would think exactly that. So just, and again, this is not necessarily on your plate. I'm putting this out there because this is a board issue of, we got to make sure that we make it easier. Everything we do, and we should be thinking about how to make it easier for the people who come behind us. That's what we should be focusing on.
And there's two components to this too. There's the internal systems and processes, and then the external. So the whole goal, should be, better organized, easier to interact with, easier to get information, and easier to share the information. So I have several ideas for how to do that. So our social media for events, you want to post more than once for an event. The percentage of people that actually see a post from an account in their own feed is incredibly small. People right now who are working in social media are excited if 10% of the people see it. So the more that's out there, the more chances that somebody will see it. And then, there's stuff that we could do, like tagging other businesses or using hashtags that gives it a better chance of being shared by somebody else, which will increase visibility.
We
And
talked
this-
about the hashtags, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I want this group to be thinking about this. As we think about moving forward, we should be developing some hashtags. And I'm just going to throw a few out there, but I want you all to be thinking about this too, depending on what we're doing. For instance, like when we do fundraising things that gives back to the community, we have this and I'm making this up. This is not, for sure, but hashtag SUNI gives. When we are, doing something to support our businesses, hashtag SUNI supports, but we need some of those. And actually, Erin, tell me if I'm off base on some of those, which is like, so there's these hashtags that have to do with, our mission and what we do and kind of being consistent. But then there's hashtags that get more people involved. Are those different and separate? And I shouldn't be confusing hashtags about what we do with hashtags about how we involve people.
It's a little mix of both. It depends on what it is. And you got to think about how it's serving somebody. So for example, for the Halloween stuff, I use the hashtag SUNI events. That's going to serve people because they're going to be able to see all of the SUNI events if they chase after that hashtag. SUNI Gives, I think, is a really good idea, because if somebody wants to know, okay, well, what are they actually doing? They could click on that and then see the posts related to that. But then there's also some bigger community hashtags that we could use. So I'm going to use like some generic community hashtags and then some specific branded hashtags that are invented and that have like little to no other uses already on the internet. So just coming up with the categories and then addressing each one as it comes up. Like maybe SUNY land or SUNY zoning.
Oh, I like that. That is something that we should be thinking about. And actually, I don't know if it's land and zoning, it could be planning or, vision. But that's a good one. We have nothing in that space. And if you think about it, it's actually the most consequential and most important thing we do. So, and we have nothing in that space. So that is definitely a low-hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
So this breaks down what could be done for events. There's a pre-event info and announcement, and these would be like the types of things that could be shared, type of content. Posts with like a picture. A carousel is just multiple photos shared in a single post. stories, reels is another word for video on Instagram. You know, all this stuff's probably going to change in the next few days. It gets updated a lot from social media, so you got to keep up with that. During the event, sharing stories, like a live accounting of what's going on, is really helps to get visibility on accounts. And then after an event, sharing a thank you for coming with like a picture or a video of what happened. Always using hashtags and always tagging with relevant people or businesses. And, you know, this can sound a little overwhelming at first, but when it's written out into a system, it's really easy to follow and make happen. And it's also going to be something that'll be easier to get a volunteer to help with if there's a system in place saying, okay, you know, we've got this event coming up. We need you to do 3 posts, and each one of them needs to have X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
So Aaron, I don't
Yeah.
know if you covered it somewhere else. Do you cover either training and something opportunity? So for instance, you know, going back to what you were just talking about, right? So I think, you know, multiple people on the board would need to know how to do this. And then if we find people who will do this for us, we want to make sure that they can do it too, right? So
Yeah.
at least when we think about like how to get there, right? Here's all the missing stuff. Here's the stuff we want to do. And then how do we get there? I think something along the lines of training. I mean, I laugh because I'm like, and this is me. I'm like, we're a bunch of 50-something-year-old people who don't know how to use this shit, but we know we need to. But and so like, how do I get there? But so I think we want to maybe put that in there as what, how, right? How we get from, you know, where we are and how, and to be, make it sustainable going forward. So
One of my favorite things to do in this situation is to make a video showing exactly how to do this stuff.
That's what I was wondering, if we could just
Yeah,
record
that is
it, you know,
awesome.
do a quick
Yeah.
training session, we use it over and over until, you know, then we have to
The
do it
only
again,
challenge
but
is that it changes. You
yeah.
know, that's the only challenge, you know, and we would have to update some of those things. But at least in the short term, you know, if you can show 2 people how to do this, those 2 people, and again, people who are out there trying to recruit, and I think events is a big part of this. Event committee and folks on events are the folks who we would want trained to do this. And those are the people that, you know, are going to use this video and need to learn. Sometimes they come in, they're like, oh, I already know all this stuff. You're not even doing it. Or sometimes they come in like, I will do it if you tell me how.
Yeah.
And that's the group of volunteers we have, you know?
Yeah.
Or
And
we
then
can find.
another thing is, you know, taking everyone's time into consideration is super important. Because seriously, ain't nobody got time for that. And so one of the ways to handle this would be to create like a low, medium, and high priority hierarchy. And so high priority for every event would be, you know, the bare minimum, which is 1 post announcing the event. And then, you know, the second checklist could be medium priority, and it would have the next few things to do. And then low priority could be like the next level. And that way, whoever's doing it can allot into the time that they have the tasks, if that makes sense.
Totally. Thank you.
Yeah, so create templates for this kind of stuff, monthly marketing plan calendar, graphic templates, and then process and workflow checklists. And all of this can include video instructions too.
So I don't know if we talked about this template, but the 2 other templates that I think we do already need, and it aligns with the stuff you've already been doing. So it's kind of the look feel, right? One is letterheads. We haven't started there, right? Because we've been so busy on events, because there's event templates. But I think letterheads is another one, so that that look feel aligns with the website and aligns with some of our marketing, and a PowerPoint kind of template, because that is also going to be part of our annual report in a sense, right? So
Yeah.
I think those are the 2 other templates that we should be thinking about that we're going to probably need in the next, 4 or 5 months are those. So I want to make sure that I put that on your radar, that that we want to work towards. The marketing templates is one piece, but then the letterhead and the PowerPoint presentation, and then what the website looks like, and the web pages are actually also all part and parcel.
So, I did a SWOT analysis too. We've talked about most of this stuff, except not too much on threats, which is funny because you just brought this up. One of the threats is the individual. So any efforts that we have here to improve and should be documented, so that not just one person is responsible for all of it, or only one person knows how to do it. The other threat is unofficial Sunnyside social accounts and organizations. It's because there's the lack of brand awareness and branding on SUNY. It's confusing about who to follow or who has the best information for the average person out there. So, these two things can be solved just by creating some documentation and then working on the branding, continuing to work on that.
Yeah, the unofficial piece is going to be really difficult. One of the things that I've seen over and over and over again every year, almost every interaction, is everybody thinks we're Sunnyside Music Fest, and we're not, because they're their own, nonprofit, and they exist just to throw this concert. But because of the name, that is part of us. Now, that's one thing, and we work with them. Their folks and our folks talk to one another. I think that's okay. But the situation that I don't think we can do much about are going to be the unofficial ones, right? Where on neighborhoods, there's a Sunnyside neighborhood, local spark, on Alignable, on Nextdoor. We don't actually have control over that, at least not now. And I'm not sure how whether we want to take that on and say it's all us. That's an interesting challenge. The individual situation, I agree, we have that today. That can be solved. That unofficial one with things that we don't have control over, I'd wonder whether we can actually solve for that.
Yeah, we can. It'll solve itself with the branding.
All right, cool.
Because anything that doesn't have the logo, the colors, the fonts, the voice of SUNY, after the branding gets started, people will just subconsciously know that it's not related. And that includes the Sunnyside Music Festival. There'll be more of a separation there because their branding is like a rooster or something.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So artsy. It's just one music festival. So they might think like, oh, SUNY's putting on the music festival.
They do.
Stop confusing Sunnyside Music Festival as being the neighborhood organization.
Yeah, that is the one thing that I think is a challenge. On some of the other ones, like we may not want to, override Sunnyside or Alignable, but just distinguish that they're not Sunnyside, but Sunnyside and Alignable, it's very different, and they can exist and have a different purpose, but they can't look like us, If they put a Sunny on their logo, we would be like, hey, you can't do that, But other than that, I don't know how we've solved that.
Well, it's kind of like in like a regular business, and you have competition out there, and how do you beat them? You just be better. And SUNY's already got that going for them. The value of SUNY is it's the official neighborhood organization and all the things that come with that. So just communicating that and getting that out there automatically gives SUNY a leg up on the unofficial SUNY accounts.
Well, I'm going to throw something out there for this group to consider. There is no such thing as the official, and the reason I'm saying that is anyone can create a registered neighborhood organization. Like right now, if I was like Sunnyside United Neighbors blows, I'm going to create my own RNO. I can. And then there is no such thing as official. Now, we don't currently have that, but that is again, maybe a threat, but like
Hmm.
any organization, anybody and a group can organize, and that's a good thing, right? And they can organize and be an RNO, and they can be parallel to us. Right now, we don't have that. But if you look at something like Gloveville, they have like 5 RNOs, okay? Like, but if we think about going forward about like, how do we alleviate and not be that? And if that ever happened, do we know how we'd handle it? I just want to make sure you know that
Hmm.
5
Interesting.
registered neighborhood organizations could exist in the boundary of Sunnyside. And if that happened, how do we differentiate ourselves? Okay. We're not there, but that's a possibility.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. That's why I was brought that up to make sure, like,
Hmm.
as we're thinking about future, those
Well,
things can happen. We don't know who's going to pop up and say, I'm going to create my own RNO.
I think that anyone who wants to do that, after we implement some of this
Yeah, they come to us.
branding and the templates and the visibility, it's just going to be that much harder for them to
Right.
start from scratch. Like we're, you know,
But
that's
but it's a threat and a risk that could also happen. And so like even like we're the official, like I think we have to rethink the official. There could be 5 officials. There
it
is
would be
no
the
official
oldest
in the sense.
official.
Yeah, there is no real official. But that could change with what the city is doing and their ordinance that creates us. They could be changing that, and they are right now. They're looking at how to change the ordinance that spells out our existence.
So in conclusion, SUNY needs to get the word out about who we are and how that benefits members, potential members in an organized and easy to comprehend manner. In order to do that without overwhelming volunteers, we'll implement some systems and processes to create a smooth and manageable workflow. And then, once all that is complete, we can look into different membership levels and what can be offered.
I
There's
love this.
potential to bring great value to businesses once the new website's live, especially with SEO. And once the social accounts are beefed up and organized, that's going to be huge value for local businesses. And all of this is just going to attract more people and make more people want to interact. And I think one of the key things to keep in mind internally is to watch what's happening with this and make sure that there isn't more work created, but that everything that's done is going to decrease the amount of time required. And it's going to make everything more efficient and more impactful.
Well, thank you.
So yeah, then I broke it down into a plan, step by step, 1 through 8. So that's it. Thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, we've never done this in the 6 years that I've been participating, paying attention. But so as part of the plan, right? We're what should we work on first, last? We've got 8 pieces here. There might be the easy hits and ones that we're already doing. We're almost there. And then there's some things that will take more time. I mean, do we think about it that way on this? And actually, I'm going to shut up. I want to hear other people. Everybody else go.
I can't get myself off of mute. Thank you, Erin. This is a lot of good stuff. Like you said, I think Tripty, what we need to do, there's obviously some good branding. We're missing some opportunities. There's probably, like with the events, I just have a little training that maybe hopefully everybody wants to attend and can help with, because there are hopefully a lot of events. But once I can get up and running on that can be kind of a low-hanging fruit thing there. To your point, if we tried to take on all this right away, we're just overwhelming ourselves. So I think we need to digest, and maybe each of us come back and decide, hey, okay, here's just my thoughts, let's tackle these 3 things, or January, let's take on this one item and we focus on that. And then February, we do another one, something like that. I don't know. I feel like I don't want to be so spread out and scattered.
And actually, one of the things that, Aaron, like, I brought you on, you volunteered. This is fantastic. I think I think we need to continue the conversation. And there are some pieces in here that folks on this call can just help you understand better. And I think that may help with some of the priority issues, right? And then we still have to go after the low-hanging fruit, and that we have to go after the easier things and harder things, or the most impactful things first. And then how much money things cost. Like, as a lead, I think about value and cost, and hours, and the ability of the current board to absorb some of this. I think most of what you have is really, what's the word I'm looking for? But like very understandable in terms of where we are and what we're missing. And I think we may even need some surveys in here, right? Yeah, along the way. Like, I think this gives a great view of someone who's been paying attention, saw what we're doing, helping us out. And then I still think there's something to be learned on, like, there's other things going on. What's not being considered here? And I think
Yeah.
that's a conversation that I, events person, membership, financials, and obviously land use will bring you back to me on the land use. But like, we should be talking about this in these separate categories, because I think it'll help you kind of understand what is actually happening and what we should actually be working on, right? The importance, the things that we're missing. And I think there's you don't have that full set of information either. This is what right now from what you saw and what you gathered and what you've experienced through, the stuff that you've been helping us with so far, but I think that we need to keep going on this and move towards, but at the same time, the easy hits. I think, I guess I'm most interested in the easy hits first.
Well, this plan is actually laid out in sequence.
Okay, great.
And 1 through 5 are
Okay.
mostly done. Number 2, reviewing the description or the slogan, and then coming up with a new slogan is what I think is the absolute most important thing.
Tell me
to
about the
start
new
with.
slogan. Make that real for me. What are we saying today, and what are you saying that we should be saying? Tell me that. That slogan piece.
Yeah.
The elevator speech. Okay.
Yeah, the elevator pitch. Currently, SUNI is the Sunnyside Registered Neighborhood Organization. We represent our neighborhood on important city. I'm reading
All right.
it and I've already lost my own attention.
And this
Represent
is
our
great
neighborhood,
feedback. This is great
So,
feedback.
coming up with a way to say this.
How about I will work with you on this piece, because I think I can, right? So let's talk about like this. If this is one of the top things that loses people, let's work that out. And I think it's great feedback that it loses you,
This might be something interesting to pitch to some copywriters too, to see how they would reword it. I'm not a copywriter, so I don't know.
We need to talk. I mean, is part of this the kind of the intent and the overarching goals, and then there is the way to say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the way that you say it is you start off right away with the biggest benefit to whoever's listening to it. So the biggest benefit to the neighbors and the businesses. what is the
Yeah, that is
benefit
right.
that they receive from SUNY? Instead of saying what we do or who we are, we talk about what the benefit is for somebody.
So I can work with you on this. And you know, as we think about all the other pieces, let's find the person who's like, you know, who can help and work through some of those pieces.
So the branding guidelines are almost done. We just want to add the slogan in there.
And also, do you think we're going to get rid of the buildings in the SUNY, or is that not a brand? It's not a branding
That's
thing.
after,
a
that's
logo.
after number
Okay,
8.
that's a
you
logo.
know,
Okay.
That's later.
Yep.
And then the Canva templates are forming as events and stuff are happening. So,
Right.
you know, that's kind of happening organically. Project management. So for documenting the workflow, and the processes and everything, we should look for a project management app that's, you know, free and that most people are familiar with and that it's easy to use.
This is a good one for folks to think about. I mean, either one of those works for me, but I think what works for most is what we need to be thinking about here.
Yeah. So these Trello and Google Sheets are two simple, popular ones, but I'd love to hear if anybody else has any ideas. The idea would be to move all of this off of email too, you know, stop.
Oh my God,
everything
please.
through email.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
but is that Slack? Because that's just another tool. Like, what's your tool for moving it off of email? I would like to talk about that.
Using
Trello?
Trello or Google Sheets or
Okay.
another app. So instead of getting an email talking about, you know, here's a real example. Have you made the event cover for the Facebook
Right.
event cover for the event? And it's like, no. And the reason you had to send that email is because I didn't have a checklist of what was needed.
Right.
If the checklist is on Trello or Google Sheets or another project management app, that cuts out the need for that communication, saves you time, saves me time. And then you can
Okay,
also
I like that.
comment within these apps and you can set up notifications. Like, let's say you like getting an email, you can set up to get an email notification for if somebody comments. So there's a lot of options.
Brandon wants no emails. That's all I know.
I
Right,
know,
Brandon?
I hate getting email. I would not recommend implementing Slack.
Okay, I
Because
hate emails too.
I use Slack for work, but it's a different app and it's just another tool. And I just think adding more tools isn't the best idea because that means people are gonna need to keep up with the tool on how to use it. They're gonna have to learn how to use it. They're gonna have to keep up to date with the changes on it. So it just makes things more complicated. So we want to cut down and use as few tools as possible. And
And one of the things we need to think about is that we could get people who don't want to use any tools, don't have access to tools, and have a general part-time, you know, understanding technology. These are folks who could actually be on our board, and we need to think about how we will, you know, accommodate and work with that group of
So
people.
here's the cool thing, like, let's say that they're in charge of some task and there's a checklist for it. You can print it out and hand it to them. You know?
So there you go. I mean, like, that's kind of one of those little, we want to be able to do this quickly.
Yeah. All right. And so the number 6 is a beast. That's going to be a huge task. That is not a low hanging fruit.
Nope. And I think a website's going to be a part of it. Events is a part of it. I think we've got to, you know, I think that is its own thing. And I'm okay not dealing with that right away because it requires other things to be in place too.
And then reviewing the email newsletter formatting options and improving on that, just to make it easier to read and digest. There's a lot of information in every email.
Are you talking about are you talking about MailChimp then? When you say email,
Oh, is that how it's being sent?
yes, it's MailChimp. And in the future, it's not going to be MailChimp. It's going to be part of the membership toolkit, remember? And we don't even know what that looks like because we're
That's-
moving towards it.
Yeah.
But today
That's
it's
why I
MailChimp.
put this one lower down here because it would be higher up on this list, but because the platform's changing, I don't think there's a need to address this until we know what that actually looks like.
But you talk about what's not working there and your, your criticism or opportunities there. I would like to hear that.
Where do I start? It's it is so much good information in those emails, and it's just hard to gather it all at once and to digest it all at once.
It's not digestible
I would
size.
put, like, I could actually take one and break it down, I think would be easier than kind of generically
And we should
addressing
do
it.
that. We should do that. Because remember, one of the things that I think I was talking to you about early on when you came on board was that I wasn't sure we were using all of our platforms correctly, right? So when we think about using social media or newsletter or in-person events, maybe we don't have to be talking about all the same things. We need to be targeting a little bit more and say,
Yeah.
on Facebook and social media, we're going to talk about this. Then we don't repeat it, and maybe we're repeating too much. We're trying to cover all the same things in every platform, and then that doesn't work. But so I would love to talk, another time about, if we're not properly using each of our platforms to their highest ability for the targeted audience that it actually reaches. And this is obviously one of the asks I had of you.
I think the email newsletter is a little more complicated to address as well, because you have to think about who's putting it together, and if it is broken up into segments, like let's say there's an email for events, there's an email for land, there's an email for asking for donations. Consider the person that's putting this together and how much time they have, and even if it's just something that takes 15 or 20 minutes, you got to stop your day. You got to get onto it. You got to put it together. You got to send it out and then start your task again. So it's not really 15 or 20 minutes, it's 30 minutes or an hour. You proofread it and all that. And does this person have time to do that 3 days a week? Or, so it's a little, the email is going to be interesting to address. I think to begin with, if you want me to look at the last few emails and just break them down, we can start.
Yeah, I think we should. I think that would be a great next step. But I also want to hear from everybody else on this presentation of where you think we need to go next on this presentation before I give you the next presentation.
Yeah.
Tripty, what's your number one goal for these 10,000 people in the neighborhood? Is it that they donate their $20 a year? Is it that they hang out and have beers with each other? Is it that they're volunteering? It's great.
That's a great point. Actually, I think is that they're paying attention to important issues, and that this organization is sharing all of those to them, and then they can pick and choose what is important to them, right? So if there's like 12 important issues, well, any individual can't focus on all 12, but they could focus on this and that or that, whatever. But I mean, at least from the way, from your really simple question of what do you want them to pay attention to? I think it is what they want to pay attention to. And our goal is to make sure that we share everything that's important. And then it's up to them to figure out what they pay attention to. But it's definitely not give us money, do this for us, show up. All of those really, and I don't know, what I've said to folks on events is, why we have events is that we have a captured audience to then share the important issues. I think the most important thing for us to be able to do is that we share the important issues and then we let them take it from there, but provide whatever information. Like if you're supposed to, weigh in on a certain topic, that we tell you where and how to weigh in on it, and then also here are the factors to consider. That would be, what my goal would be as far as the important issue.
And Aaron, this is a really great slide. I love this. It's just important because I think we just need to make sure we're giving the most important message first to the community, whatever it is, and consistently. And that makes sense, Chippy, is what you're saying. It's just to inform them, informative here about what's going on and what they could choose to be involved in. But this makes a lot of sense.
So
But again, I think events is how we reach people and share the important issues. And then it's up to them, what they want to
Yeah.
do with that.
this
And then
is so
we can
interesting.
guide them on that.
This is really interesting because as a, someone who's relatively new to participating here, you could see the values I listed here. I put community connection first over informative because my impression was that this was more important. But if I think about like the events that I've attended, there's always been information, and it's been a little confusing of like, why wasn't the information part promoted more in the event promotions?
Resources. I would say resources is the reason that the informative stuff wasn't promoted more. I would actually put information as number one and community connection. But to me, community connection is how we inform, right? Like, if information is number one, connection is a way to do it.
Yeah, this
I don't know where I
connection
put
is a
that.
means to an end, but
Correct.
as it stands alone, that wouldn't be one of the main.
And actually on these values, these
goals.
are things you put together from our website, correct? It's not it's not something we came together. Well, it's not something anybody said that these are 1, 2, 3, and 4. Am I right?
Right, that's
Okay,
correct.
I just want to make sure. I actually think information and community connection, I think both are equally important, and I think they're integral, and you can't do one without the other. So I don't know what's number one. I would probably put community connection number one. If you don't have a connection, you can't get to the informative part. But you could say, someone could say, if information is what connects us, then informative is number one. But I think they actually are the top priority in terms of what we should be doing and how we can serve.
The people I know in the neighborhood, I don't know that they know that we are the resource for information.
Right.
And I don't know
We're not. If they can't find us, and we're not doing it, so we're not.
But they wouldn't even know to begin with. That
Correct.
be connected with SUNI because they're going to tell us everything that's happening with land and events, fundraising.
Businesses, yeah.
And that truly, that's why I asked the question is like, what are we trying to achieve here? And it sounds like information is really what it is. And therefore people will come to us to know what's happening. But I don't think right now that people understand SUNI as being that source of information. And so maybe that's where we just need to think about the communication that we disseminate or push out.
And the website. I think the website is a big part of it. Like our website is going to be able to convey who we are and what we do. At least that's how I'm envisioning. And I think it's super lacking. It has been. And it's been hard because most people on this don't want to get behind on WordPress and do stuff. If we have a platform where things can be easily communicated, maybe more will be communicated. But the values piece, this is important. I don't think we've looked at it this way, but I think we should. And it in itself could drive how, we go forward. So I think it is actually really important. And Brandon, asking that question, what are we here for? And actually, so I want to hear from everybody else. What do you want from this organization? What purpose should we serve? And again, everybody's views are limited to what they know. So it's okay to be, not complete, but are we not thinking something here that we should be thinking? I'd like to hear from more people.
My biggest thing, I agree that they both kind of are so entwined. It's trying to figure out what comes first, the chicken or the egg here. But definitely we want to be the source of information, and we can always direct them to our website or other pages, Facebook page, whatever it is. When we have the community connections, how can we give them updates in bite size, manageable? Everybody goes to their regular job Monday through Friday, whatever their schedule is. But then we're not just, if we're there to have a fun event, let's give them some updates, say, hey, here's this thing, go here for it. Or do we print it out or something like that? Give them a QR code to link just to that specific bit of information. Because I don't know, when there's a fun social event, yes, we do have our audience in front of us, but we also don't want to make all of our fun events like, oh my God, here they go again about this other stuff that I have no interest in. And some do, some don't. So,
I know, and this is exactly why this conversation is important, and
Yeah.
actually the value of having a really new board, because you guys are the ones who haven't been there the whole time. So therefore, your feedback on what you've seen, heard, what works, doesn't work, I think is super, super valuable. So I love this conversation about, the questions that we've gotten so far, the feedback we're hearing, but like bite size, okay. And what we're doing so far is not bite size. How can we make it more bite size? And you on the event side, you have a little bit of control over like, hey, you know what? We want to do this, but and Brandon, you asking about like, what are we after? I think that's really important. And maybe we should take this back to the community and say, what are you not getting and how could we serve you better? Like that is a survey on its own, even a informal survey that would just be board members who just talk to people, right? But we need that board that just talks to people, shows up at the highly attended events and just asks these questions. What would you like more of? What would you like less of? What's missing? And that's the kind of thing that, and I love the fact that us looking at this and thinking about these questions leads us to actually action to try to find out. Like that is the best part of this to me.
Yeah.
That's gonna drive our communication out. And
That too.
Yeah.
That too. Okay, who else are we sorry, and I only have, so many. We're actually already over. Katie, haven't heard from you.
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about the fact that we're on time. So one of the things I was thinking about is there's like so much great information in this presentation. I think we've been having some really meaningful discussions, but given that we are already a little over time, maybe we should talk about how we can move this discussion forward, like in the next, month, so that next time we meet,
I think we're gonna have it on our agenda again next month to keep talking about the how, why, and all of that other stuff, and like also just digest what she's put out there as our deficiencies. And I think that's a really important thing. But no, Katie, what I was asking was, you're actually one of the more senior people on our board, and kind of hearing some of this, and you do the newsletter, wanted to hear from you, kind of what resonated and what's, stuck out. Of course, I value your opinion like everybody else's, but you know that.
Yeah, I thought the two big things from Aaron's presentation that have resonated the most with me are actually, I think, what she's talking about in number 6 here on the plan, about how you create awareness and action for your activities, and also make sure that your social media posts are getting where they want them to be, because I think that we probably see the most interaction with the community through social media, and I think that we have a lot of opportunity to do better with our events on that side. So I thought that part was really great. And then I've already forgotten what the other thing I was going to say was. But I think we do need to work on what our priorities are to the community, and especially this issue of community connection versus information, because I think the message we put out there is that our number one thing is community connection. But what I'm hearing from the board is that we want it to be information. And it's not that one is right or wrong, but my impression from how we represent ourselves is that our number one thing is helping the community connect across the neighborhood. And I think we need to be clear about which of those is our top priority.
Thank you.
If it's connection, and I'm not here very long, the things I've been at, it doesn't seem like a ton of people connect or show up, and maybe there's things I'm not observing, right? So
Good feedback. That's exactly right. Why?
yeah, so I think together we need to figure out what you just said, Katie, and Aaron, you had this up there, is what is the priority, or connection versus information, and then really how do we enhance either one of those and what we're doing.
All right, so we've been way over, and I love this, and I can talk about it all night, and I have like 4 more beers, okay? But
I need to go
I'm kidding.
help make dinner.
I think we need to put this back on. We're going to keep putting this on the agenda as a 20-minute at least. And Brandon, I apologize, we didn't get to the finances. And I think that our finances are good. The goal is that we want to think about next year, how much money we spend. And I want every committee or, in every area, whether it's marketing or whatever, to think about what do we want to spend money on and how much. And again, that doesn't mean it's going to be approved, but let's think about where we spend our money and how. But I think we need to continue this conversation. This is actually, going to be a long conversation. And Aaron, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
We talked about, I want to know at what point you become a volunteer and a board member, then a consultant. And the reason I say that is, as a consultant and as someone who is volunteering their time and their expertise, will offer you, a tax receipt and some benefit, but you're doing so much and you live in the neighborhood, and we'd love for you to be more of a board member and on these aspects. So I just want to, let you know that I'd love for you to be a board member, and we need to talk about the rest of that, because if we're going to be doing this hard work for the next year, we got to talk about the finances to the organization on that.
Okay, yeah, let me know what you have to say. I do have to go now, or else Adam's gonna kill me, because I gotta help make dinner.
Good luck.
Yeah, but I
This
think
is gonna be back on the
guys'
topic, though.
next step of deciding which one's more important, community connection or information, is super important, and takes priority over everything else. And then in the background, these templates are getting made, the branding guidelines are almost done. And then once the primary value is figured out, this slogan and description is going to be easier to write. And maybe that's been what's so difficult about it so far, is that the main value wasn't quite defined, or there was some differing ideas about what that is. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop
All right.
talking.
Yep. Well, Erin, thank you. I know we kept you long enough. I don't want you to get in
Thank
trouble
you.
because that's not a way to get you on the board.
And you know
Don't wanna
what?
get in big
We're-
trouble.
We didn't even get to the financials, and that's okay. We're not in the red. We're okay. We can spend money, and we're gonna push the financial conversation till next month and update it with another month of financials. This is amazing, and thank you so much for assisting us on thinking about stuff that we wouldn't otherwise. And like I said, you're welcome to join our board anytime.
It's been fun. I enjoy it, nerding out on it. So,
Thank you,
all
guys.
right. You guys have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
Okay, adjourn.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right, bye. Do I get off this thing?